Hi guys and welcome back. So in today's video I am going to be preparing dandelions for long-term storage. So I have been letting my dandelions grow on through the springtime and I've just been out now and done a big harvest of them. So unlike most gardeners, when I'm harvesting them I'm leaving some of the root behind deliberately so that they will come back again, whereas most gardeners are trying to eliminate them as a pest, and so they're trying to make sure they get the whole taproot out. But obviously I don't want to do that because I want to use them again next year. So there are three parts of the dandelion that I'm going to be making use of. The flower head itself, which makes a tea. The fresh spring leaves, which make a great spring salad. And the roots, which can look a bit gnarly and horrible, but they scrub up and you can toast them and then grind them down into a powder, and that's what they used in the Second World War in place of coffee, because obviously they couldn't get hold of any coffee when rationing was going on. Apparently they don't taste that much like coffee, but they are a caffeine free beverage, and apparently it's quite nice. But the good thing about dandelion is it's got a whole host of different health benefits. Now there have been a few scientific studies on dandelion, but not enough to conclusively say, scientifically speaking, yes, it's been proven to work. But in traditional herbal lore it has been cited as having benefits for muscles and joint pain. It's been cited as having benefits for bladder control issues, for skin tone, for eczema, and for stomach aches and gastrointestinal issues. So there's a whole heap of benefits, and you can find those benefits from any part of the plant. So that's what we're doing today. So I'm going to be going through and cutting the plant up and washing all the mud off the root, and I should be left with roots a bit like this. So I will let them then soak for a while, then I will toast them and then dehydrate them, and then I will crush them down into a fine powder and store them like that. And I'm going to be taking the tops of the flowers, making sure that there's no bugs or insects inside them, blowing off any debris, and then I'm just going to cut the actual heads themselves and put them in my dehydrator and just leave them to dehydrate. I have got a couple here that haven't opened yet, so I'm going to leave them in here and see if they will open up for me as sort of cut flowers indoors, and if they do then I will also add them into the dehydrator later on. So let's get started. Just finished preparing my dandelions, so I have got 2 tiers of my dehydrator full of dandelion heads. I've also got 2 jars full of dandelion heads here on the windowsill, which I'm hoping will open up. They're in some water in some jars, just like cut flowers. I decided to dry most of the rest of the leaves, and I will pound them up like you would have dried basil or something in a jar in the cupboard, and I will keep them that way. They can be used for teas, and they could be used in savoury recipes as well, and they just add that nutritional benefits. Dandelion's got a lot of nutritional content, and it's also, as I said earlier, got a lot of folk remedy curative properties. I'm going to say that's a word. The word that sounds like that, that's the word I was going for. So I am quite happy with that haul. I did in fact go and knock on my next door neighbour's door and ask if I could cut the heads off their dandelions as well. Obviously I wasn't going to go around digging the roots up out of their lawn. But it just helped me to get some more dandelion heads than I had in my own lawn. Always make sure before cutting plants from someone else's property that you have permission to do it. So that's a caveat. The other thing I would say is always make sure that you check some reference books or some online materials to make sure that the plant you think is what it is what it is. So I've got books that I like to use. One is the Hedgerow from the River Cottage collection, and I can't remember the name of the other one, but I will put pictures of them on the screen now. I've also got a Dorian Kinsley, who used to do the encyclopedias, Encyclopedia of Medicinal Herbs book, which is also very interesting. So if this is something that you're interested in, I would recommend getting some books and learning your stuff. Don't take it as rote from one source. It's something that I think it is always better to err on the safe side than to eat something that is poisonous. So when you're foraging or you're collecting naturally grown plants that you haven't planted from a seed, then make sure that you know that you are actually harvesting the plant you think you're harvesting. So I've now cleaned up my roots to a certain level. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just put them on a baking sheet in the oven at 180 degrees and just watch them until they seem to be nicely toasted, and then I will pop them in the dehydrator along with the rest of the things. It is important to make sure that you toast before dehydrating, because if you dehydrate something and then put it in the oven with no moisture, it will burn very quickly. I've found this out to my cost on projects before, so make sure you toast them before dehydrating them. And then once they're dry, I will just add them to my pestle and mortar, and I will grind them down to a powder and store them in a jar in my cupboard. And these things, once they're dried, will store long term very easily over the course of a year. So I can expect to have them last for at least a year in airtight containers in a cool, dark storage cupboard. And if you enjoyed this, you will probably enjoy a lot of the rest of my zero waste home collection. So I will put a link to that playlist now. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.